Hello, partners. I'm Architect Patch, and you're watching Curve TV's Bold Talks, your collaborative construction show, Season 2. How are you, partners? You're watching us via Facebook at Curve TV PH, on Kumu at TBC, and on YouTube at the Boulder channel. Here at Curve TV's Bold Talks, we bring you the different sides and faces of the industry like never before. Fresh, inspiring, unintimidating. So join us for an hour of talk and more. Let's get ahead of the curve. So, guys, when it comes to decorating your space, lighting often takes a back seat. But lighting truly has the power to make or break your space. Not only is it crucial to think about where to place your lighting, but also how your fixtures play into the rest of the decor. For tonight's episode, turn the lights on as we welcome our two special guests, lighting designer Julio Sardalia and entrepreneur and lighting designer Andrew Lee, who's also the managing partner at Green Group Incorporated. Hi, guys.
Hi,
Hey,
Patch.
good afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, guys, for joining us here at the show. This is a very exciting topic because, again, like what I said, lighting, how often do we really talk to lighting specialists, right? And lighting designers. And this is such a good time to do it because everybody's at home, everybody's thinking good lighting, how to look good on Zoom or work from home or whatever. So thank you very much for joining us. Julio, let's start with you. You're in Milan, right? How is it there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm currently in Milan. I think everything's good. I mean, I hope so. I'm still studying my master's degree in lighting design here at the Politecnico in Milano. But I am an architect by profession. So
That's why I'm excited. I'm excited to know that because you're specializing in lighting, and that's one of the most important aspects in every plan. What about you, Andrew? I can already see the lighting behind you. I mean,
Thank you.
I have to say you are justifying your profession. How are you, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Work from home. It's a bit tough now, so projects are quite slow. But we try to be more productive and creative, while we're at home. Yeah.
Right. So okay. So let's start the conversation going, guys. Can you just give us or share to us your principles of good lighting design? Because we always hear that I want good lighting, or this place doesn't have good lighting. How is a sensible lighting design complements a good design? Let's start with you, Andrew.
For me, of course, to validate my work, it's always about evoking a sense of emotion from the users.
Mm-mm.
So, yun yung talaga hinahanap ko is it should elicit a certain emotion. So, I mean, how do you do that? And it's a combination of, I think, understanding the architecture first, and then understanding the users. What type of typology are you doing? Is it more of a retail, a art gallery? And then lastly, it's about integrating the right technology to the project. You don't. There's a lot of new technologies in lighting, but you don't really force it to the client. You need to see what's more valuable to the client. Yeah. So those three: the architecture, the people, and I think the technology. Everything would form a sort of evoking a sort of emotion.
Right. I agree on the emotional part. No, Julio, what about you?
Yeah, I completely agree with Andrew. Well, at least for me, good lighting should, for lack of a better word, it should melt into the space. Like you shouldn't perceive lighting and the architecture separately, because, like what Andrew said, lighting sets the mood, or you basically just feel the atmosphere that it has created.
Mm-hmm. And I mean,
like for example, if you go to a hotel, right? Let's take that example because that's one of the spaces wherein lighting plays a huge role, especially in lobbies, right? Imagine the space when there's no light, you would just see it like an empty space with, a counter and everything. But once you turn on the lights, you get it invites everyone who's
Yeah.
going to check in the hotel, right?
Yes.
And another establishment that uses a lot of light is a bar, which I mean, a lot of people aren't, going there right now because of the lockdown. But the lighting, and when we say lighting, it doesn't just talk about bright lights. It's the
Yes.
play of dim, the soft
Play of
light.
I think you call that the play of shadows. Kasi
There you go.
most of the lighting designers I know, if you go to their homes, they want something that's dimmer. They don't want it
Yes.
something that's
Too bright.
uniform and then bright. They hate that. So we lighting designers really want some an ambience that's very cozy, dark.
Mhm. Right. And Andrew, let's take it from there, no? You designers, you want it like a cozy design, or you want to play with shadows. So from a planning perspective, when do you start thinking about the lighting design when you construct a new building? Which part, or how early on, how late?
Okay, so I consider architecture as a form of art. No? So I always use this analogy. So, for example, you're doing a painting, no? So you don't paint someone and then add on the light later. So you do it during you start conceptualizing it and then you start planning it during hanggang execution. So I think same with architecture. You need when the architect is on board, I think the lighting designer should be on board, and then they collaborate on how the lighting should be for the exterior and the interior space.
Right. And
Yeah.
Julio, you mentioned you're also an architect, right? And this is a
Yes.
collaboration between the designer, say it's an architect, an interior designer, and the lighting specialist. So in your practice, before flying to Milan, were you able to collaborate with a lot of lighting specialists, or were there really people who does that, or how does it go?
Yes, in my previous job, I had the opportunity to work and collaborate with a lighting designer. Although, I mean, ideally, the lighting designer should come when the project starts. But usually happens is parang nagiging afterthought na lang siya, and that's what makes the lighting designer's job a little more difficult because dapat sa beginning pa lang, it should be a conversation between the two, like so that it basically melts into one space. It should, like what I said earlier, it shouldn't be a separate thing.
Andrew, my question here is because it is a specialized thing, right? It is a specialized part of the plan. And even as architects, it goes not naman beyond, but it goes into a more detailed concept kasi to locate the lights or which kind of lights to put. Have you had any encounter wherein the client thinks na this is an added cost, this is an added service fee if I get
Always.
a different lighting? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, kasi actually not just the owners, no, even though the architects din. Of course, it's another layer of coordination. Of course, the architect is somewhat the head of the project. If there's another say a lighting designer comes on board, may another layer na naman, they need to coordinate everything. So yun. So it's just really how well you collaborate. Kasi for us lighting designers, if I go into a project, it's like you're balancing something. You're balancing the architect, you're balancing the PM, you're balancing the contractor in terms of the buildability, and yung owners naman is on the cost. So everything you need to balance. So it's very difficult.
But in your practice, what was one of the biggest collaborative issues that you've encountered? Meron ba?
Okay, firstly, I think owners and designers, architects, interior designers, and so on, they need to have first an understanding of what lighting designer does. No? Kasi sometimes iba-iba. Like for example, if you talk to an owner, ang first question sa'yo is, what are the brands do you carry? Diba? Product agad siya. And then, diba? So, and then yung lighting designer naman, they expect you, yung mga architects naman, they expect you, they would just give you the plans. And then you just put dots on the plans. So parang ganun. So, okay, tapos na ako sa plan, I'll give it to you. Ikaw bahala. Just send it back to me. So that's not collaborative work. Yun. So I think there's, going back, they need to have an understanding what the lighting designer does, which is we don't really sell product. We don't carry a catalog. And then we're not there to make the installation easier for the contractor. And we're not there to bring down the cost of lighting. No? So nandun pa rin yung where lighting designers are hired to create an atmosphere.
Right. I agree. Lighting designers are there not just to put, to make the space brighter, but to create an atmosphere and evoke emotions. Julio, you're there in Milan, you're studying, and could you give us a picture on how the practice is there compared here in the Philippines? What did you notice?
Well, for one, here in Europe or in Italy, like they take lighting design very seriously because I've seen there are so many lighting studios. I mean, unlike, I'm not sure, but in the Philippines, it's not really considered when designing, But here, because from the get-go, palang, like it's already a consideration when designing. And there are also standards set for this, and then there are like specific laws and everything. So it's really interesting to compare the two because it's so parang ang layo ng, ng difference between the two.
Yeah, and sige, I'll give you a common dilemma, and I'd like to pick your brains on this dilemma. So a company hires a general contractor to oversee a large-scale renovation or new construction build-out or a series of projects. But when it comes to lighting, the company isn't sure who should purchase the products. Or sige, this is more of like a specification question eh. So, nandiyan na yung project, who recommends or suggests which products to purchase? I'll ask you first, Andrew.
Well, is this in absence of a lighting designer? Or there's a lighting designer on board?
Say that there isn't. Give me two scenarios. Say there isn't and say there's one, a lighting designer.
Yeah, of course, if there's a lighting designer on board, he or she dictates the specification. And then sometimes lang that they really, the lighting designer hopes that the client sticks with that specification. Of course, if you pass, it's kasi lighting is like a parang unwanted baby, no? Parang pass it on to the interior designer, and then the interior designer pass it on to the engineers, and engineers pass it on to the contractor. So parang ganun yung nangyayari. So if there's a lighting designer on board, he or she dictates the specification, and then for me lang, in my opinion, the owners should purchase the lighting.
Okay.
For me, it's a very important aspect that if you pass it on to the contractor will always find cheaper alternatives.
But say that the lighting consultant entered the planning stage a little too late. Nandiyan na yung mga RCP mo, naglagay na ng specifications. Is it still, ano ba tawag doon, ethical, or is it still proper for the lighting designer to say, okay, you know what, I have better suggestions for these specs?
Yeah, of course. I think the architect who's in charge would give way if there's a lighting designer on board. Yeah.
And okay, so here's another question, and this personally, I want to ask this question too. Gaano ba kadami talaga ang lighting designers dito sa Pilipinas? Can you give me an idea on that?
Okay. Well, I've worked with a handful already, being in sort of a supply business first. No? So yeah, meron naman. If I would say, siguro mga five. If I can mention, or maybe I think the pioneer would be Christine Sicanco. She's doing Okada and all the casinos, and then Light Plan, and then ASCC LPI also did the Mactan Cebu Airport. So yeah, they're mostly concentrated on big developers.
Right.
So
And Julio, tama. And Julio, you're taking you're getting your studies there. Do you plan on being like one of these lighting specialists in time?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the goal. I mean, hopefully, when this is done, I get all the experience I can from here, and then let's see. Maybe in a couple of years, I'll be back and be one of them.
Yeah,
I hope I can call myself like that as well.
right. And because it's already in line with your profession, diba? You're already exposed to the construction and to the planning. So this will really be a good addition to the services that you have. And I don't know if you guys agree with me too. Here kasi in the Philippines, when you think of getting a lighting specialist, we're very much product based, right?
True.
It's I don't want to mention any brands, right? But it's parang ganon eh. It's product based. When you need something that would make the place look cozy or dimmer, you look for that actual light that will give you that emotion, and then you go to the brands that suggests that. Versus like the other way around, wherein I want to make the place cozy, I'll talk to someone, I'll talk to a lighting designer, and maybe he can help me plan it. Do you guys think that way also?
I think I'll let Julio answer first.
Yes.
Yeah. Funny you should say that, because in our classes, our professors keep telling us never look into like a specific supplier first. You should always make your concept concrete, and then you start looking for like a specific kind of light and whatever. Because sometimes if you look into a specific brand kaagad, parang you're limited to just that, without exploring anything else. So yeah.
Andrew?
Yeah, for me, I think for the longest time, kasi in absence of having an education for lighting design or lighting design practitioners, our education for lighting came from suppliers. They give out seminars. I think they're the one who taught architectural graduate to space the lights 2 meters apart.
Yes. Right.
It's not really. I mean, hindi na siya applicable nowadays. Yeah. So I think we've got that knowledge from suppliers for the longest time. So I think it's a matter of changing the curriculum, adding more lighting design courses, siguro, to just open the minds of designers and consumers. Because for example, in Singapore, they really know their market segments. So if I have this project, I want to make it nice. They really know that a lighting designer is necessary. And then alam din nila yung mga products. They know if they go to a DIY store, that's a consumer type lighting. You don't expect it to last for so long. If I have a high-end project, high-end commercial project, I'll go with commercial type of lighting manufacturers. And dito sa atin, it's ang daming brackets eh. Everyone is claiming quality. So hindi mo masabi rin eh.
Tama. And when you mentioned that, kasi lahat talaga, the first word that you will always see in products is quality. Which, I mean, to some extent, totoo naman, ng sinasabi nila. But again, you really have to, see the target market and to which establishments and type of buildings these lights can be, used. And iba-iba nga yung emotions na madedepict niyan. Okay, go ahead, Andrew.
I listened to one lighting designer, yung isang talk niya. Very nice yung sinabi niya. There's 2 types of lighting quality. No? So there's a quality in terms of technological aspect. So yan yung mga nakikita mo sa yung suppliers. They always mention this to you. Yung lighting quality in terms of the hardware itself. But there's another aspect where the lighting quality is in terms of perceived value, how you see the space. So I think that's where the lighting designer comes in. You need to marry the 2 lighting quality. Because you cannot define lighting quality. If I buy a downlight, high-end downlight, and I install it, you don't guarantee lighting quality there. Diba? Kasi that's the reason why I started lighting design. Is I'm selling lights And then if I sold a high-end lighting to a client, tapos yung arrangement niya is like on a grid, parang ba't pa yung client nag-invest in a high-end lighting? Kasi parang pareho lang naman yung effect, di ba? So the lighting quality in terms of a perceived value is very important talaga.
I think that's a very nice point that you mentioned. Perceived value of the lighting design. Tama ka, because no matter how expensive that piece of lighting fixture that you bought, and you don't apply it in the right way, or you don't put it in the right space, you can never justify the cost of that. And I guess meron ring mga instances wherein you don't buy the cheapest, you bought a light that isn't that expensive, pero tama yung spacing, tama yung area of the house, and already, diba, parang naging high-end na yung lugar. Okay, so this is a good first part of our talk. Let's pause for a short break. After this, I wanna know more about lighting designs. Okay, so mga parts, please don't go away. Curve TV's Bold Talks will be right back. Like super fast. Sige. Nag-break pa. Okay. All right. Okay. Welcome back to Bold Talk Season 2. While many lighting designers have a range of thoughts from positive to negative about the impacts of the pandemic on the lighting design profession, we also know that many lighting designers have seen positive outcomes as well. Lighting design firms, owners, and principals are confident in getting new proposals and signed contracts. Okay, so Julio and Andrew, what are the usual questions that you ask your clients when offered a project? It's the first 2 to 3 things that you ask. Julio, let's start with you.
Well, I think it really depends on the project, But I guess the most general question that you can ask is like, who are the users of the space, or like, how is it used, and how long will someone be in the space? And at the same time, like, I guess you can also ask what's the overall mood that you want to create from the lighting. So I guess you can start from there, and then the conversation will just eventually flow from there.
Right. And Julio, is that when you ask these questions, are they instantly answered by your clients? Like, do they already know they really already have a concept in mind, or parang it's very vague pa lang?
Well, it's very vague, but that's why you hire a lighting designer to help you, like make suggestions on like the moods that you want to create or whatever. But usually for the first couple of questions, like the users, that one they can answer, and then that's from there. I guess a lighting designer can already think of how to light a space, etc.
Right. What about you, Andrew?
I think mostly the same then with Julio. There's a certain period where you can talk to the client and the architect about briefing you of what type of atmosphere they're looking at. And then with the architect, what's the story of their design? So yung mga ganun. Yeah, pero I don't really ask that much question. I usually observe the architect or the owners. Kasi it's like coffee, there's a people na parang okay lang sa kanila yung they're drinking office pantry coffee 3-in-1, and then there's people that understands the difference between a cortado and a flat white and a cappuccino. And then there's another level naman, coffee lovers, na they taste different kinds of notes, they roast their own beans. So I parang nilalagay ko sila dun basket. Like for lighting, no? There's clients and architects na they don't care about lighting. They don't care about ambience. They want something that's functional, cheap. So you put it on that basket. And then there's other clients and architect naman, they really put in time to create an atmosphere. And your owner has really taste, no? Someone that's travels, they see it in hotels, they stayed in. And then yung isa naman, I think it's more of us, like Julio, we're industry practitioners, so we understand all the terminologies. So when I go into a project, I always define these people. and then hopefully I can turn someone who doesn't really care about lighting to the second level sana, who someone after the project appreciates na, oh, ang ganda pala dito. I don't find it too dim. It's very comfortable. So it's something that's satisfying at the end.
It's good that you mentioned that, because my next question talaga is, how far do you educate your clients who aren't very conscious or aren't that much probably sometimes not tentative, or some kasi aren't very informed lang that okay, you can create this kind of mood pala given that this is the only expense that we have to shell out. So how far do you try to push to educate your clients?
Yeah, I'll let Julio answer first.
Wait lang, parang napaisip ako dun bigla.
Yeah, kasi
well,
there are ways on, like, some clients kasi parang yun nga eh, they think that ito lang yung pwede. They think that when you look at the space, yun nga, just like what Andrew mentioned earlier, perceived value. 'Di ba? Minsan naman kasi sa galing lang yan ng designer eh, kung saan lang ilolocate, ganyan. And some would feel, I think the word is intimidated with the price and the value. So how far do you guys push your advice or to inform them na, oy, kaya pa. Kaya nyo pa to i-elevate?
Well, I guess you can try and push your design or concept or whatever to a certain extent, but I guess the best way to do it would be to educate them on, like, so I'm at a loss of words.
Recitation.
I guess you can just say that, since they don't really know much about it, so that's why you were hired, so that they can learn as well. So I guess from there you can continue with or push with what you plan on doing.
Right. I get your point. Don't worry. What about you, Andrew?
I don't really find educating. I find educating more intimidating. No, mostly what I do is I have a dialogue and discuss with them. Kasi if you say educating, parang nakakatakot. Parang minsan if you try to educate someone, sabihin lang sa'yo ng architect, ikaw yung expert dyan, I'll give you all the plans, ikaw na bahala.
More work, parang gano'n, no?
No coordination. Eh. So I've had clients, owners. The architect tapos na sa project, they don't want to meddle with it. I work with them closely. Like I have this project in Cebu now, residential project. Very nice. It's like a glass house. It's like a long box with all glass. So yun, I started with specifying a few lights. The concept, we need to make this look like a glass house in the evening. So ano ba yung mga stages nun? How do we make this look like a glass in the evening using a non-glare fixture? When we did mock-up, dun niya na-visualize na parang, ito pala yung feeling. Ito pala yung feeling. So they really need to see it. Kasi for us, like yung mga lighting designer that's just starting out, they need to collect visual images of lighting effects. I think yun yung pinaka nakakatulong sa akin. That's why also I encourage you to travel. Kasi you can have that photo memory. Parang, what does a light look when it hits a glass? What does a light look when it hits some textured finish? So you always collect that. So I think that's how you educate them as well, by showing them.
And it's different kasi iba talaga ang tama ng ilaw on different materials, and it really affects the design. So, okay. So we said on our Facebook that we can entertain questions, and I will take advantage of your presence here because we have a lot of questions in mind. So from Facebook, we have Martha Marquez asking, how do you solve color consistency using LED lighting?
Well, if I may, color consistency, I guess you can, like when you're buying a luminaire or a bulb, you should check the packaging, and then you should see this thing called CRI, which is color rendering index. So the higher the number, that means the better you can perceive the color. But the lower it is, then parang it changes your perception of the color. So I guess that's one thing you can look at. Don't be fooled by suppliers who say that they have a CRI of 100, which is the highest, which honestly does not exist. So anything above 90 is good enough, but these tend to be a little more on the expensive price range. So
what is the average? What is the average CRI that's acceptable, or parang because you said 90 above is high end na eh?
Well, I mean, it also depends on the space that you're using it. No? Like, for example, if it's for a retail space, so syempre kailangan mataas yung CRI. A good one would be around 90, 92, But you can go as high as maybe 95, but maybe you don't really need something that high. So, I mean, that's one way of doing it. But I'm sure Andrew has something you can share as well, or is that?
For me, color consistency is, for example, you buy 1,000 pieces of light and then you put it on a white wall. How consistent are the color temperature? And I think the value for that is yung SCDM, yung McAdams. So there's a chart, and then if a supplier says it's 3,000 K warm, it's not really 3,000 K warm. There's a few steps higher. So +2, +1. So normally for lighting designers, for high-end projects, they specify a McAdams step of 2. Meaning to say yung shift ng color is 2 steps lang. So pwedeng 3,200 hanggang doon lang. So visually, you don't really see it. So it's a bit technical na. So basically the term is a McAdams step, McAdams ellipse. So it's a 3,000 K value warm, and then you +2, +3. Ang pinakamasama doon is yung mga +4 and above. I think
Kasi may difference na talaga.
Yeah, I've had projects na there's a hotel in Ortigas. Okay, I think you may color yung building. If you go to their lobby, parang
alam ko na to.
Yung mga color ng walls nila, it's different na. Sometimes may violet, may green, may fuchsia. So yeah, yun. That's
it has something to do with that.
Yeah.
Okay,
for
so
example, if, for example, you're lighting in art gallery, no? So you have a white backdrop. So you cannot have a very high shift in color kasi makita mo yun sa white backdrop eh. So ma-distort yung view ng users dun sa painting mismo. So
I agree. So Martha, sabihan mo yung supplier mo or whatever, McAdams yung term. I don't know how technical you are, pero baka bigla kang seryosohin ng supplier mo pag yun ang sinabi mo.
Baka supplier yan.
Tingnan natin. So, and she also has another question. How can you incorporate green and sustainable lighting into your designs? Yan. It's a big word now. We're all trying to push the green and sustainable designs. But what about in lighting? What is your take on this naman? How do we do it through your profession?
I guess the most, the easiest way is yung wastage of light, because I noticed parang it's either you have too much light tapos it's not really useful. I guess by limiting the wastage of light, I guess that will really help on your consumption. But I guess since we all use LEDs and everything, I mean, that one will really help in terms of sustainability and whatever.
Does it help?
Does
it help when it because a lot of people, no, not man a lot of people, but there are some who uses naman mga sensor lights, diba?
Yeah.
For sometimes it's for sustainability. Is there some truth to that?
Yeah, I think
Andrew, you can answer.
I think control is a big part of sustainability. It doesn't really end with lighting design. So contrary to, I'm sure, baka some of you doesn't know, no, the lighting design scope doesn't really stop on specifying lights. It also we also need to specify controls, no? What are grouped together, what are being turned on at a certain time of the day. But for sustainability, I think LEDs are marketed as sustainable. They're not really. Because sometimes if you buy a cheap lighting, then it lasts for 6 months, and you're not being sustainable anymore, diba? So I think people should know that when they buy LED, it needs to be durable. It needs to be from a reputable manufacturer.
Right. And tama yung sinabi nyo about control, 'di ba? Sometimes that's why the switches also are important because sometimes it's just one small space that you need to use pero yung ilaw nakakonekta sa iba't ibang lugar. Then I mean lahat waste, that's right. It's the waste of the use of the lighting. So again, thank you for bringing that up. It's very informative. You guys don't only think of the light per se, but also the control system of the lighting.
I think the control also dictates the scene of the mood. Like for example, you mentioned hotel. No? If you enter a hotel lobby, not every light is turned on 100%. Maybe the spotlight that's hitting the painting is just 40%. The cove lights are just 20%. So it's under the scope of the lighting designer to set the ambience.
Right, and I guess that's another. That's another plus points of getting a lighting designer talaga, 'di ba? Para if you're an architect, hindi mo naisipin 'yan, bigay mo na sa kanila yung specialization na 'yan para I would think, 'di ba? Para alam na nila yung actual control. So there's another question from Jackie Aquino. The question stems from what should be considered practical or artistic or both. I guess in terms of the usage of different lighting fixtures. Any thoughts on that?
Practical or artistic? Like what should be considered?
Yeah.
I guess it really depends on the space, because not all spaces call for an artistic usage of light. Because sometimes it would seem very out of place na rin, diba? If you have something very artistic and it doesn't really respect the space. So it really depends on the space you're designing. So yeah, it's a pretty it's pretty broad.
I agree with you on that because, for example, if you're designing an office and you want people to be highly productive, you don't want to put dim lights there or something that would make them feel so relaxed and sleepy, tend to be sleepy, right? So tama, it depends on the space. Or if you're say designing a bar, a pub, and you want it like the market is for a very intimate type of mga speakeasy, then you put in the dramatic lighting. Meron pa dyan yung mga spotlights showing the different bottles. So maybe you can follow up on that on us on that, Jackie. Like, do you have a specific space in mind? Because it will really depend on that. And I've seen some spaces wherein they tried to put on the spotlights. Alam mo yun, na parang the super yellow warm lights, and it didn't match because there's so much people, diba? And the tendency kasi sometimes with that, if it's too populated, ang init. Kasi diba may ang spotlight mainit yan eh. That's why you just put it in like one particular area so you focus. So given these different scenarios, how can light help improve the well-being of a person? Because in our previous episodes, we've talked about wellness, right? In terms of ventilation, in terms of acoustic, it helps us mentally. What about for lighting, Andrew?
Well-being. Okay, it's nowadays they really use it a lot, no, for projects. So I think for lighting, it affects us all, eh, no? So I think your lighting should there's no matching natural light, of course. Yan talaga yung that's the source that we really feel good outside, no? Whether for artificial light, I think your your lighting setting should make you feel good necessarily. So what are the key features of that? One is non-glare fixtures. Maybe your fixture should not be hitting your eyes, and then indirect lighting also is one. So I think going back, this is a small subject I did for my thesis, yung well-being as well. So we feel good outside. No? We feel good under a shade of tree. So it's important to match it with artificial lighting. For example, we're looking at sunset. Sunset is a soft gradation from low to from high to low, diba? So how can we shift that to artificial light by use of a wall washer or a cove light? So parang that alone is a sort of a similar feeling. So I think that's where you get a sort of a feel good feeling and eventually translates to well-being per se.
I agree. What about you, Julio?
To add to that, no, lighting kasi affects also our circadian rhythm or our natural body clock. So one way to address this is like having lights that would help our natural body clock. So like having a more cooler white during the day, because it kind of mimics the daylight. That's why it's called daylight. And then pag medyo paggabi na, it will be a little more warmer so that it makes us a little more relaxed and so that because if we keep having all daylight all day, parang it keeps us parang it makes us too focused and attentive. Especially pag gabi na, parang it really messes up with our circadian rhythm or our body clock. So I guess having something with a more adjustable light would help with that. And I guess that will help us in terms of our natural sleep patterns,
That's true. It's funny you mentioned that because I like, when I get the chance to, I like sleeping in late. And because of the light, alam mo yung mga blackout blinds, when you totally black out sunlight or any source of lighting, it really prolongs your sleep. Diba? Parang ganun eh. So I can, probably that's not the exact but you can relate to that. It really gives you there's a psychological effect to it. And I don't know if you guys notice this also, but for me, kunwari merong bagong bukas na mini stop or 7-Eleven. Yan yung mga malalakas yung ilaw eh. For some weird reason, every time I pass by one, parang it invites me to go inside. Because of and I was thinking, why is it so inviting to enter that mini stop? I remember this before. It's because of the lights. And patagal ng patagal, when they don't replace their lights, parang you don't wanna go inside na. And this is a very mababaw example, but it still relates to light because it invites you. The effect of that invites people to go in. And it's not because you need to buy something, but because it creates an illusion because of the lighting inside, right? And I don't know if that justifies all our conversation here. Bigla ko lang siya naalala. Pero again, we go...
Just to add to that, we are naturally attracted kasi to light. So
bright space.
Yeah.
Exactly. Diba? So it gives you a good feeling or a positive vibe. And when you're at home, and we've seen this with a lot of DIYs, ang daming tao are into designing their own spaces at home, especially now during the pandemic. Yung bedrooms nila, they add a lot of accent lights, they add a lot of ano ba tawag yun, mga conversation piece mong light. Uso ngayon yung mga LED strip that you put behind your TVs and your, diba, the walls. I want to ask you guys, because I know a lot of people who are thinking of elevating their space naman without having to spend so much. It may be a work from home setup for their Zoom, or may it be like a small nook at home that, kaya nilang i-design. Can you give a few tips on that? How to elevate a certain space? You can choose any space. I'm sure may matatap tayo dyan. Go ahead, Andrew.
I think Julio knows this. So this is the basic of lighting design. You try to work with layers. Di ba, Julio? Parang they taught us in the beginning. It's you start with focal first, which is yung mga spotlights, and then second is you need diffuse lighting, which is yung mga cove lights, and then you need decorative, and then some so on. So it's just working with layers. So I think if you design your space, you need to design it in terms of the task, what you're doing. No, it's not like you don't design a space. You put one light and you expect everything to be bright and even. So you lack that versatility. So, for example, in a kitchen setting, you have a task lighting for the under cabinets. You have your decorative lighting, and then you have your down lights to highlight the cabinetry. So you have three layers. So whenever you want to set the mood, you can turn off everything and just dim down the pendant lamps. Or if you're doing something quickly, you just open the task light. So it gives you more versatility, more energy savings. Yeah. Because right now we're very used to planning a space now. We order the same type of lighting and we expect everything to be bright. Parang yun lang.
Yes. And can you repeat again the 3 layers? Andrew?
Well, the basic one would be focal, then general, which is ambient lighting, diffuse lighting, and the next would be decorative. Yan yung parang yung sinabi ng isang viewer is the artistic feel. And yun. So you have the decorative lighting, you have the colored lighting.
Doon pumapasok yung mga strip lights, no? That we call, doon ba siya papasok? Will that fall under that? Ang dami ko nakikita niyan, yung mga purple, blue, pink,
that's
nag-iiba ng color, diba?
That's one. That's the play of brilliance ang tawag namin doon. So parang meron siyang sort of parang the light itself gives you the information na yun. So that's one type of a decorative lighting. Yeah.
Right. And that's such a nice tip. What about you, Julio?
Actually, just to add to what Andrew said, for example, like since we're always working from home now, so like your study table, one way to elevate it would be to have maybe a cute task light / table lamp, and that alone will completely change the whole space. At least like if you don't need your general light, like your lights on the ceiling, you can just keep that on, and it already creates a nice mood for the space. So as simple as that, that it doesn't have to be anything so elaborate or
flamboyant, right? Or sobrang extravagant. So, okay, for example, this space, okay, you can see, I mean, I have the ring light here, I have my general light here, but this space right here behind me, it looks very dull. So, ang ganda, no? May example talaga ako. This looks very dull. And what is your tip so that this space can, be a little bit more alive? Because I'm doing my zooms and you can see this dark space, especially now, naggagabi na. What's a tip that, like an accent lamp ba yan? What can you put there?
Yeah, I think for Julio, you're staying in Milan. I know houses there, like wala silang downlights. They just use floor lamps. Wall lamps.
So true.
For me, in my condo before, I don't have downlights. I just have floor lamps and pendant lamps, and that's okay na for a small space. We're too fixated on installing downlights here, kasi yun yung nakasanayan.
Why is that nga? Why is that?
Yeah, basically going back to we're being taught by suppliers. That's the only thing available, and we're very scared of dim spaces. I think we should realize that there's always beauty in dimmer spaces. So you just try. If you have a small room, just place a small table lamp and a pendant lamp. You're good. You're good.
Right. And so you've mentioned already a lot of tips, right? Are there any architectural lighting trends that you weren't able to mention, especially now during the pandemic? Ano pa bang mga nauuso ngayon in terms of lighting? Or in the future, what you're foreseeing to be highly used in the lighting industry?
Well, from what I've been hearing, though, as much as I don't want to mention brands, but anyway, Philips Lighting, kasi they have this new thing now. It's called UVC lighting. Well, I mean, it's still a research. It's still an ongoing research, because of this whole pandemic and coronavirus situation. They have this huge R&D team doing research about UVC lighting and how you can integrate it in spaces. Although, I mean, it's quite nakakatakot siya pakinggan kasi UV light, di ba? Parang it's not good for us. But I understand that they are coming up with a whole line of luminaires for like basic consumer usage for disinfection and etc. And there's also one good example of this would be this Dutch artist, I forget his name, Roosgaard. He created this huge urban light installation called Urban Sun that uses this kind of light, UVC light. So it's something that I think will be the trend from now on. And another one that I've also heard of is something called acoustic light. I guess this ties in with your previous episode about building acoustics and sound. So what some manufacturers are doing now, they integrate like sound absorbing materials to their luminaires or fixtures so that it would help with the acoustics of the space. So I think those two will be something we will be seeing in the very near future.
That's very interesting. I haven't really looked much into the acoustic lighting, but I'll definitely look into that after this. What about you, Andrew?
I think post COVID, I think more of controls. Like I know people won't really enter a bathroom with turning on the light from the light switch. Di ba?
Yeah.
Very OC na sila dun. So parang for me, it needs to sense someone's there and then turn on the light automatically. Yeah, and then one is control, and then I think what else? Yeah, I think it's more of the control systems now.
Kasi I think what's also tied up to that is how we are trying to evolve into like a smart system already, right? Integrating these technologies because ang dami ng products na lumalabas, and I mean compared to before, the technology when it comes to controlling things are parang a little bit cheaper than before. I'm not saying it's cheap, but it's mas nagiging affordable na siya compared to how they first released it, right? And I think this is one way of, really thinking forward or going to tech and smart systems because nga, I mean, with all the effects that the COVID brought us, you don't wanna touch anything, right? And you see the value in like the no touch or the sensors, which again ties up to making the space a bit more sustainable. And lighting is one of those systems that can really contribute to that.
And I
All
think,
right, so yes, go ahead, Andrew.
I think also one thing is lighting can also make a space look clean. Have you experienced entering a space where it's daylight, you're using daylight color, and then it's very dull and very uniform? Parang you don't feel clean. Parang I think that's lighting design. That's one way to looking at it to make areas clean with in terms of lighting.
Right. And I mean, I want to end this discussion with a very basic question. And I know a lot of people encounter this whether they go to the hardware or whatever. When do you use white light? May tatlo yan, diba? There's white light, tama ba yung terms ko, guys? Warm light, and then there's daylight, tama ba? Or merong tatlong levels yan eh. So when do you use these colors? Because I understand there are products that already promotes all three. Kapag siniswitch off mo, nag-iiba. But there are different products na magkakaiba, right? So when do you use which of these lights?
I guess if you wanted to use like in cool white or in white light, that would be something for the more service areas of the house, like say the kitchen or like the laundry. And then if you wanted to use yung warm white, that could be for the bedroom so that it's a little more cozy and warm. And then if you wanted to use in daylight, that could be for probably the general areas of the space. Although, I mean, uh, this would also vary depending on the usage of the space. But generally, I think that's how I would do it. I'm not sure about Andrew though.
I completely agree. No? So there's certain type of color for certain spaces. But this is something that you don't do. No, you combine these two colors in one area. That's something that's no. So yun, I think there's some people kasi they want white light talaga. It depends on the ambience. Let's say you're trying to pull off a industrial type of a condominium. So white light's not really bad. No? It's just a matter of you don't combine it. Na parang you have a general lighting that's white, and then you have the focal lighting or a table lamp that's really warm, something that really contrasts each other. So, yun.
There you go. That's very helpful already, because I've seen, people mixing these two. Some naman, they don't know which of these lights to use. So thank you for giving us that tip. Final words before we end this discussion. Please tell us, how important is it really to consult with a lighting specialist? This naman for those, starting of planning their projects. Please, encourage everyone that to have a lighting designer is really an important role in terms of coordination and coming up with a plan. Let's start with you, Julio.
Well, I think lighting design or lighting designers should be there to help or assist the architect so that it could, further beautify, for lack of a better term, their space. So I think that's why lighting design would be important, because it should complement the space that you're designing.
Yes. Andrew?
Yeah, for me, last words would be, don't be too intimidated with lighting design. I believe that everyone is a lighting designer. Once you're starting to plan your own space, you want to plan your own atmosphere, everyone is a lighting designer. So don't try to be intimidated by it. And I think yung suggestion ko lang is, aside from hiring a lighting designer, just put an effort in planning your lighting. Yun lang.
Right. And I mean, thank you. Ikaw na mismo nagsabi, Andrew, konti lang yung lighting specialist dito sa Pilipinas. And I'm already lucky that I have you two to discuss this with me, because I've learned so much. Mac Adams, tama ba yung term ko kanina? Those never to mix the white light and the warm light. As simple as that, I think people will be able to already apply this in their own homes. And this is what we're doing naman talaga to help everyone out. So to you guys, Julio Sardalia and Andrew Lee, thank you very much for joining Curve TV Bold Talks. Please do tell us where we can find you guys, your services, how they can contact you. Are you on Instagram, Facebook, or your website? Let's start with you, Andrew.
Our company is called Green Group Inc. So we've been in the industry for 11 years now. So we try to give the clients a full total lighting solution, from planning, supply, design, installation, and so on. I always tell people that we don't sell fixtures. We sell the lighting itself, the overall product. Yeah. So you can find us in
your website.
Yeah.
What's your website? Can you please state? Greengroup.com?
INC.
Okay, greengroupinc.com. What about you, Julio? Babalik ka na ba ng Pilipinas, or di ka pa namin i-expect dito? Where can we find you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, Julio Sardalia. And you can also find me on Instagram. Just search my name and I'll be there.
There you go, guys. All the best in your projects, Julio and Andrew. Thank you also to Green Group Inc. for allowing us to get you from your office. So mga parts, please don't go away. Curve TV's Bold Talk Season 2 will be back shortly.
Thank you.
Panasonic. 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 Panasonic.
Season 2, supported by Workfolk Collaborative Workspace and Hospitality Innovators Inc. For sponsorship and collaborations, if you want to feature your brands, your projects, or your company, please drop us an email at 1tbcchannel@gmail.com. Follow our socials at CurveTVPH and at TBC Plus, the Boulder Channel. Parts with me now is Inspector Architect Gabriel Solano from the Bureau of Fire Protection. Good
Yes,
evening,
ma'am.
Inspector Architect Gab.
Good evening, Arcpatch. Magandang gabi. Maraming salamat po. Thank you to Curve TV for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for joining us. Now, Inspector, I know you have some good news for us. So can you please tell us what is Apoy at Lente project of BFP is?
Yes, ma'am. Tama po. Last March 1, we launched, during our Fire Prevention Month, we launched the first ever film festival by the Bureau of Fire Protection. It's entitled Apoy at Lente, the BFP Short Feature Film and Photography Festival. It's basically a short feature film tapping yung lumalawak ngayon, ma'am, na environment ng mga independent filmmakers, di ba po? From bloggers turning to independent filmmakers. So, we want to tell kasi the story kasi behind every fire incident, there is always a story. Be it either a story of hope, a story of despair for the people na nasunugan, but most importantly, those stories are meant to inspire people regardless of how the inspiration would hit other people, but at the end of the day, inspiration would always be inspiration. Inspiration either for them to na mas mag-ingat, na hindi na sila mas maging aware sila sa pag-ingat sa sunod because this would happen, but also some inspiration that somehow would paint a better picture pagdating sa Bureau of Fire Protection of our fire safety sa communities. So it's a two-part contest. The first part is a short film festival composed of a 10 to 12 minutes na presentation. And the other one is an open professional photography contest na pwedeng salihan po ng mga photography enthusiasts natin.
Okay, so parang dalawa, no? There are filmmakers and mga photographers. So who can join the festival? Is this open to everyone? And what is the process of participation and the deadline of submission?
Yes, ma'am. Yung una, ma'am, yung first part, yung ating short feature film festival, this is open to all professional or independent filmmakers, even amateur filmmakers, they can join. Except sa mga bombero. Kapag you're a member of the Bureau of Fire Protection, you cannot join. You are defaulted. Why? Because part of the theme na pwedeng i-portray ng mga filmmakers is a life of a firefighter, buhay ng isang bombero. Now, kung ikaw mismo yung bombero and you will portray the story of yourself, then that would be very self-serving, di ba po? So, a story made by independent filmmakers, they could join here. When it comes to the photography, now, ito yung mas open to everybody. It is open professional photography contest and basically anybody na photojournalists or photo enthusiasts, even Bureau of Fire Protection members who are
Mhm.
photo enthusiasts can join the contest. And since launching it last March 1, 2021, open na po yung ating mga registration platforms. They just have to visit our official Facebook page. There are two pages available. The first is the official Facebook page of the Bureau of Fire Protection. And yun, mas malaki kasi yun eh. It has a 200,000 following. And the other one is the Apoy Atlante Facebook page. Now, posted sa Facebook page na to are the mechanics and the details. Kasama rin po dun yung prices. So medyo malaki-laki yung prices natin dito. So encouraging sa mga gustong sumali. One is yung short feature film, yung grand prize winner doon is 100,000 pesos. And
Wow.
yes, and yung winner could take home as much as 160,000 pesos. Depende kung makuha niyo pa yung special, dalawang special awards. And sa
Mhm.
feature film, sa photography naman, ma'am, 50,000 po yung cash prize doon. So
This is
deadline,
very good. And the deadline?
yes, the deadline, ma'am, of submission of entries will be on June 11, 2021. And the judging or the awards night rather will be on July 30, 2021 during our first Philippine Fire Congress. And of course, ma'am, I would just like to mention this activity is in partnership between the Bureau of Fire Protection and SM Prime Holdings and SM Cinema. So together with them, so we are encouraging yung ating mga film enthusiasts dan, yung mga nanonood to join and tell the story.
Well, thank you very much, Inspector Gab. No, I mean, we really appreciate your service. And sa panahon ngayon, I mean, all throughout the year, ang daming, sunog na nangyayari. Very unfortunate, especially now. Mas high alert ngayon because it's already summer. And mas, I'm sure, diba, yun, mas mataas ngayon ang cases for sunog. And people
Yes.
should be aware of this. And this is also one way of showing back or bringing back to you guys because of the service that you do. And salamat talaga. So, mga partners, if you want to know more about Apoy Atlante project, please visit their Facebook page, Apoy Atlante, BFP Short Film and Photography Festival, or visit www.bfp.gov.ph. There you go. Thank you again, Inspector Architect Gabriel, for
Maraming salamat,
joining
ma'am.
us tonight.
Maraming
And
salamat po.
congratulations in advance for this event. Thank you
po.
very much.
Maraming salamat.
So tomorrow, Thursday, at the Boulder Channel, watch iConnect at 4 p.m. and Bliss Out and About at 6 p.m. Partners, join me again next Wednesday for another exciting episode of Curve TV's Bold Talks, live at 6 p.m. back-to-back with Grind Detox at 4 p.m. Stay safe, everyone. Get an architect, get an engineer, get a contractor, get a lighting designer, and get ahead of the curve. I am Architect Patch, and you've just watched Curve TV's Bold Talk Season 2, your collaborative construction show. Bye, guys.